Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So a bit of a different video than usual. I am today going to go over how I meal prep all my food. So first of all, we've got the ingredients here laid out. We've got the trusty air fryer, which is an essential. And then we've got our seasonings. We've got 5% mince, we've got salmon, and we've got chicken breast, which is the meats that are in my diet. So the reason behind this video is a lot of people struggle with just sticking to their diet, simple as that. So the more convenient you can make your diet, the easier it will be to stick to. So I am not a chef by any means, but I do know how to make nutrition super convenient and nice and practical to stick to. So I'm gonna go over exactly how I meal prep my food to keep me prepared for the week. And it also saves me needing to cook food on a daily basis. So it sets you up for success. So what you'll also need is a container and scissors, that's if I can find any. I've just moved into a new place, so I've no idea where everything is, to be honest. So we're gonna find some scissors. If you've not already tried it, try instead of using a knife to cut up your meats, a pair of scissors. It is so much more convenient and time efficient. So that's a wee hack for you to start off the video. So in my meal plan, I have 120 grams of 5% mince per meal. So what I'll basically do is cook basically as much servings as I can with the pack, which comes out, because it's a 750 gram pack, as 6 servings. So I'll put 720 grams in and then just freeze the leftover, and then when I continue to freeze the leftover mince and I've got enough to make 120 grams, I'll basically use that when I'm next bulk cooking my food. Obviously, if you don't want to save that 30 grams, you could just divide how much kind of meals you have throughout the week by the amount in the pack, just to save you having that leftover amount. And the reason why I do it all at once is it helps massively just save time across the week. So instead of having to cook mince 5 times, you're cooking it once. Yes, it'll take a little bit longer cooking whatever meats you're having, but you'll save time in the long term. So I always cook it at once for that reason. So definitely worth giving a try if you've not already. And also, we tip to save money is whenever you're buying food, buy it in as large as quantity as you possibly can, because it will work out cheaper in price. So over across the weeks, months, you can kind of save money, put it towards something else that's a bit more enjoyable to spend your money on than 5% mince. So yeah, I'll basically cook that, and what I'll season my mince with is black pepper, paprika, and garlic granules. And especially if you're dieting, I'd try and keep these standardized, because as you go through a diet, you're getting hungrier and hungrier, enjoying food more and more. You don't want to constantly increase how much you're having, because if you do that and you extrapolate that across many meals, many foods you're cooking and prepping, the calories can add up. So I'd just be mindful of that and just standardize the amount you're using. So I'll just use a gram of each when I'm cooking it and then weigh that out. Yes, it's kind of sweating the small stuff. You don't need to weigh it out, but I choose to. I like to keep things consistent. So we're now on to prepping the chicken. So a wee tip whenever you're meal prepping chicken is think about cutting it up prior to cooking it. The reason being is it will cook at a faster rate and it will make your life easier when it comes to dividing it up into portions. So I always do it prior for that reason. And what I'll basically do, and I'll obviously walk you through it when I'm doing so, is once I have cooked it, I will divide it by how much portions of chicken I've made. So for example, I am going to put 960 grams of chicken in this container, which works out as 8 servings. So whatever the cooked weight is after I drain the juice, I'll basically divide that by 8, and that will tell me how much chicken I have, or how much is 120 grams of raw weight, just so I can keep things nice and accurate. Again, do you need to be that intricate with it? Maybe not. You could just kind of eyeball it, especially if you're starting out. If you're someone that doesn't track calories and you're just trying to eat better, then by no means you need to weigh everything out like this, because you're probably going to be eating better than you were in the past anyway, and it's going to be an improvement itself. So that level of just, can't think of the word, not restriction, because it's not restriction, just being that level of detail is probably not warranted or helpful. So instead, I just think about doing what you can kind of stick to in that regard. But yeah, I'll cut this up with scissors. I froze the chicken prior to this because I got it last week, so that was kind of, should have took it out of the freezer sooner because it's an absolute bollock to cut right now, I won't lie. But I will basically cut this up, season it, and then fire it in there, and then put it in for around about 15 minutes in the air fryer, which is usually how long it takes, maybe a bit longer because it's a bit frozen still. And whenever you're cooking chicken, cutting it up, like I said, will make it cook quicker. In terms of how do you know when it's cooked, because a lot of people are worried about that, is cut up the biggest bit of chicken. So after you've cooked it in the air fryer, find the biggest bit, rip it open, and then if on the inside of the biggest bit it is not pink and it's white all the way through, then you know you've cooked it fine and you're not gonna get food poisoning from it. So another question I also get, and people aren't often that aware of, is that you can freeze chicken after you cook it. So I know some of you watching will think that's common sense, that's obvious, but not everyone's knowledge on cooking, and not everyone, especially working with people like during PT in person, just talking to individuals, people don't know what other individuals would class as these wee simple things. So there's no harm in going over them and covering them, and especially because people who are quite young might watch this. So yeah, just cut up the biggest bit of chicken, make sure it's cooked all the way through, and then you'll be fine. And what I'll basically do after I cook it, which I'll show you, is I will put it in the wee individual freezer bags and then just freeze it. And then the morning I am prepping my food, what I'll do is I'll use my rice cooker, which you can see over in the corner there, and I will cook my rice. And then when I'm cooking my rice, I'll just basically take the chicken out of the freezer and put the rice in the container. I'll cook my veg, which I usually buy frozen just for time efficiency as well, and then just put the chicken on top, and then I'll eat those meals. And by the time I get around to eating these meals, it's not sat out long enough for it to cause issues give me food poisoning, that sort of thing. So, and I've been doing that for years on end. People also worry about just leaving rice. I cook all my food in the morning and I'll just leave it out on the side in the containers, because in reality, if I'm cooking it at 8 in the morning, if I'm having rice that's not been in the fridge that I've got cooked at 8, it's not going to kill me. Same applies if I'm eating a meal a wee bit later, which I usually have at around about 2:30. So yeah, it's completely fine to do. I've not fallen ill during it, so that's what I'll do there. And as for what I season my chicken with, it varies. Again, I just try and keep it standardised, especially when I'm in a dieting phase. And if you're someone looking to compete, different seasonings have different levels of sodium in it. And sodium, we know, can affect how much water you retain, and it can affect your scale weight. So if you're in a dieting phase, and if you're doing an intense diet and you're looking to, let's say, perform a photo shoot or compete on stage, you might want to make sure that you're standardising the amount of seasonings you're consuming. The same applies with sauces. Sauces will also have sodium in them, especially the more so the multi-purpose seasonings, things like that. So yeah, I'll get this done and then I'll update you once I have finished cooking. So for the chicken, we have went for this air fryer seasoning. Usually my go-to seasonings are, I like some garlic, paprika, chilies, nice also, and then of course pepper. And usually and what I'd recommend you do is mix this in when it's in the container instead of when it's in the air fryer, so you can evenly coat all the chicken. The reason why I haven't in this scenario is because the container was far too small, so it was pretty much overflowing and it would have went everywhere. Just because I'm again out the routine of doing it when I was or before moving. I've not got a big container that fits, sadly, or there will probably be one somewhere, but I just can't find it. And yeah, that will be going in for around about 15 minutes, but I'll of course check if it's cooked before taking it out. So we're now on to prepping the salmon. So salmon I have on my non-training days. Salmon's got a lot of healthy fats in it, which can be good for overall heart health, and it's rich in other micronutrients. And I season my salmon with garlic, pepper, and also paprika. And I cook it in the air fryer as well. I love the salmon in the air fryer. I absolutely cremate it in it, I won't lie. I just feel like it's really nice when it's all crispy. And when you're like meal prepping, the benefit of doing it all at once as well is I'd just be standing here anyway while I'm waiting on things cooking. So I need to wash my hands before I use that because this is touched raw chicken. So yeah, the benefit of obviously doing it all at once is you're going to be waiting about for it cooking anyway, so you might as well do something during that instead of just sitting doing nothing. So it works out more time efficient in that regard there. And then I'll just basically shake the chicken a few times throughout, just so it of course cooks even, and then move it about if it's like sticking to the side. And yeah, then I will repeat that process. With the mince, I like leaving it without kind of moving it about for a good period because I quite like browning my mince, which is a bit easier when you cook it in smaller quantities, but it's just not that practical. So that's what I'll do with my chicken and my mince, and I'll show you what I'll do once my mince is cooked. So now the mince is finished cooking, what I'll basically do is put it on the scale. I'll fire it on 0, and then I will, of course, fire all the mince in the container. And then what I'll do once I've done so is I'll find out what the weight is after draining the juices, and then I'll divide that by the amount of portions I've made, which is of course 6. So that will allow you to work out how to have basically an equal amount in each serving, so you're having like an exact amount. Obviously, like if you're eating it all throughout the week, you're going to consume the same amount of calories, so it's not, I don't say you need to do this like I touched on, but it's not a bad idea being nice and accurate, so that's what I'll do there. And then while I'm doing so, I'll basically fire the chicken on so I can bag up the mince while the chicken's cooking, again saving me time without trying to touch the raw chicken ideally. There we go. Nearly slipped, that would have been good to do on camera. And then in terms of how I will go about draining it, is I'll just fire the container lid on, leave a slight gap at the bottom, and then just drain it carefully down the side of the sink without letting the 5% mince fall out. And then from there, I'll fire it back on the scale, and then work out the cooked weight, which is 553. So I'll take that, divide that by 6, and that works out at 92 grams. So what we'll basically do is go 553 minus 92, then that's 461 grams. And then I'll use the wee freezer bags. These are the ones that are size small, if you're wondering. And I just get these from Aldi as well as my shopping. And then fire it in these bags. Benefit of doing so is instead of like firing it in one big container, it's all bagged up individually for one. And 2, it is very, very space efficient. It doesn't take up a lot of space at all. So I'll bag these up individually and then show you what we'll do next with the other meats. So now the chicken's finished cooking, what I'll do is I'll rip out what appears to be the biggest bit, check the middle, and check it's white all the way through, which it looks like it is, and then I'll give it a bit of a shake because some bits of course might have been close to the bottom at all times. Also, once it's finished cooking, if you're leaving it in there for a bit, it's going to still keep cooking because of course it's very hot in there. So yeah, cooked right through. And for myself, obviously it'll be dependent on what air fryer you use, but it takes around about 14 minutes for me to cook around about 900 grams. So just for reference, Oh, you've lost me. There we are, back in frame. So yeah, and I'm again going to bag these up in individual containers. Don't worry, I've washed the container prior to putting the cooked chicken in it. I've not put cooked chicken in the container that had raw chicken in it. That would not be a good idea. So that's the salmon on now, and what I'll do is I'll raise the basket or the tray pretty high because it will just mean it cooks at a faster rate and makes it a bit crispier. And I will cook like maximum 450 grams of salmon in a tray when I'm using it on the air fryer, because the more you cook like in the one sitting, the less crispy it gets, and that's the sacrifice I'm not willing to make, although it could be a bit more time efficient. And I might actually consider trying to cook chicken on the barbecue or getting a slow cook or something like that, just because as much as it still like saves time, it's still quite a pain doing this every week. And if I could maybe do it in larger quantities and get like a month's worth and just buy like a freezer chest, that would be absolutely brilliant. Because again, I think whenever you can do any task in larger quantities, that's shopping, that's cooking your meals, that's things like preparing out your supplements, which I do as well. It just streamlines the process and makes things a lot quicker and more convenient. Whereas like if you do things one at a time, it takes more time, in my opinion. So that is all the meal prep done. So I altogether made 3 portions of salmon, 6 portions of 5% mince, and also, you can't see it all, if I put my head down it'll follow me, 16 portions of chicken. So that took me around about an hour of my time, but that'll save me a ton of time throughout the week and mean I don't need to like rely on being home, having cooking appliances available. I can just prep my rice in the morning, my veg in the morning, and then go. So if you don't already have some sort of system when it comes to meal prepping, if it's cooking all your food in the morning, batch cooking your lunches for the week on a Sunday, a Saturday, or alternatively like prepping all your meats at once, I highly recommend doing so. It does definitely save you time, effort, and overall just makes things a bit more sustainable to stick to, because of course when you think about like long-term physique development or body composition change, it's a long-term endeavour. So hope you found it valuable. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. Any support is massively appreciated, and share on your Instagram story.